There's a red bottle in your refrigerator. You've drunk from it 1,000 times. So is your father. So is his father. It's been in movies, in wars, on every continent. It's more recognized than any flag, any symbol, any face. But what if I told you that the most successful product in human history, the drink that taught the world how to want something, was built on a foundation most people have never questioned? In 1886, a man created a formula. Not for refreshment, for something else entirely. Something that would hook a nation before anyone understood what addiction really meant. And when the world finally caught on, when governments started asking questions, when mothers started protesting, it was already too late. The empire had been built, the story had been rewritten, and the truth, well, the truth became inconvenient. This is not a story about a beverage. This is a story about how capitalism learned to sell us our own desires, and how one company turned a controlled substance into the most powerful brand on earth. The question isn't whether Coca-Cola contained cocaine. The question is, does it matter anymore? America, 1880s. A country drunk on progress and quietly drowning in addiction. Morphine, opium, cocaine. They weren't street drugs. They were medicine, sold legally, prescribed liberally, mixed into syrups, tonics, and elixirs that promised to cure everything from headaches to heartbreak. No one called it an epidemic yet, because epidemics are what happened to other people. Enter John Stith Pemberton, a pharmacist from Georgia, a veteran, a man who knew pain, both the kind that comes from war and the kind that comes from morphine withdrawal. He'd been injured in battle. Like thousands of others, he turned to morphine for relief, and like thousands of others, he became dependent on it. So Pemberton did what any desperate entrepreneurial addict would do. He tried to invent his way out. He wasn't alone in his experiments. The era was flooded with so-called nerve tonics, drinks that promised energy, clarity, relief. Most were laced with alcohol, cocaine, or both. Pemberton had already created one, Pemberton's French wine Coca, a Bordeaux wine mixed with cocaine extract. It sold. People loved it, until prohibition movements forced him to remove the alcohol. But Pemberton was nothing if not resourceful. If wine was out, he'd replace it. He'd mix coca leaves, the source of cocaine, with cola nuts, sugar, and carbonated water. On May 8, 1886, in a small pharmacy in Atlanta, the first glass of Coca-Cola was served. It wasn't called a soda, it was called a brain tonic, a cure for exhaustion, a treatment for melancholy. And yes, it contained cocaine. Let's be precise, because precision matters when we're talking about the most scrutinized recipe in corporate history. Coca leaves, Erythroxylum coca, indigenous to South America, used for centuries by Andean cultures for endurance and altitude sickness. In their natural state, chewing coca leaves produces a mild stimulant effect, nothing like the concentrated alkaloid we know as cocaine. But when you extract the alkaloid, when you isolate and concentrate it, you create something else entirely, something powerful, something addictive. Early Coca-Cola used an extract from coca leaves. The exact amount? That's where the story gets murky. The company has spent over a century downplaying this. Some historians estimate the original formula contained approximately 9 milligrams of cocaine per glass. Not enough to get someone high in the way we understand cocaine use today, but enough to be felt, enough to make you want another glass. Think about it. You're tired. You drink this new tonic. Suddenly you feel sharper, more awake, better. You don't know why, you just know it works. So you come back tomorrow, and the day after that. Pemberton didn't call it addiction, he called it loyalty. By the 1890s, cocaine's reputation was shifting. Medical journals were publishing reports of dependency. Newspapers were printing horror stories about cocaine fiends. The drug that had been celebrated as a miracle cure was now being demonized. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Coca-Cola didn't stop using coca leaves because of morality. It stopped because of politics. In 1903, under mounting pressure, the company reformulated. They began using spent coca leaves, leaves that had the cocaine alkaloid chemically removed but still retained the flavor. Technically, no cocaine, legally compliant. But the name stayed, the branding stayed, the mystique stayed, and by then, it didn't matter what was actually in the bottle anymore. The addiction wasn't chemical, it was cultural. By the time Coca-Cola removed cocaine, it had already learned the most important lesson in capitalism. You don't need the drug if you can sell the feeling. The company pivoted brilliantly. It rebranded from medicine to refreshment, from tonic to treat, from functional to emotional. The advertising became genius, not because it lied, but because it told a better truth. Coca-Cola wasn't just a drink, it was happiness in a bottle, it was Americana, it was belonging. And when people asked uncomfortable questions about the past, the company deployed something even more powerful than cocaine: plausible deniability. Coca-Cola never outright denied the cocaine. That would have been too easy to disprove. Instead, they minimized it. They framed it as a relic of a less informed era. They pointed to the reformulation. They emphasized their compliance with new regulations. When the Pure Food and Drug Act passed in 1906, Coca-Cola was ready. They'd already cleaned up the formula. They positioned themselves as responsible corporate citizens, cooperating with federal authorities. But they also did something more subtle. They buried the origin story, not by erasing it, but by overwhelming it. Every new campaign, every jingle, every logo placement was another layer of paint over the original canvas, until eventually the cocaine origin became trivia, a footnote, a fun fact that people mention at parties, detached from any real moral weight. Because here's what Coca-Cola understood before anyone else: if you control the story, you control the legacy. They even turned secrecy into marketing. The secret formula became legendary, locked in a vault known only to a select few. It wasn't about protecting the recipe, it was about creating mystique. You can't be controversial if you're iconic. By World War II, Coca-Cola had transcended beverage. It had become ideology. The company convinced the US military to distribute Coke to soldiers overseas at a nickel a bottle, no matter the cost to produce. The government agreed, because Coca-Cola wasn't just refreshment, it was morale, it was home. Everywhere American soldiers went, Coca-Cola followed. And when the war ended, the infrastructure stayed. Bottling plants in dozens of countries, a global distribution network built on the backbone of war. It wasn't imperialism, it was invited imperialism. Because no one can resist a product that feels like freedom. By the 1980s, Coca-Cola had achieved something unprecedented. It became the first truly global brand. More people recognized the Coca-Cola logo than the Christian cross. More people had tasted Coke than had access to clean drinking water in some regions. This wasn't about taste anymore. It wasn't even about refreshment. It was about identity. Coca-Cola taught the world that to participate in modernity, you had to consume. And consuming Coca-Cola meant you were part of something bigger. But empires aren't built on altruism. They're built on control. The company's global dominance came with costs. Water depletion in India, labor disputes in Colombia, sugar addiction epidemics wherever the product landed. And through it all, the origin story remained sanitized, packaged, comfortable. Because if people remembered what Coca-Cola was, they might question what it became. So here's the uncomfortable question: does origin matter if the outcome is inevitable? Coca-Cola's cocaine past is not a secret. It's documented. It's taught in business schools as a case study in brand evolution. The company itself doesn't deny it anymore. They just don't talk about it. Because they don't have to. The brand is too big, too embedded, too essential to the architecture of global commerce. We don't drink Coca-Cola because of what it contains. We drink it because of what it means: nostalgia, celebration, normalcy. But here's what haunts me about this story. Coca-Cola didn't just survive its origins, it weaponized them. It turned addiction, first chemical, then cultural, into the most successful business model in human history. And we let it happen, not because we were tricked, but because the product worked, the branding worked, the feeling worked. History is written by the winners, and the winners are the ones who convince you that their past doesn't define their present. So when we drink Coca-Cola today, are we consuming a beverage? Or are we consuming the myth that any origin, no matter how dark, can be erased by enough success? In 1886, a morphine-addicted pharmacist mixed coca leaves, sugar, and carbonated water in a small Atlanta pharmacy. He called it a brain tonic, a cure, a relief. Today, Coca-Cola is worth over $250 billion. It's sold in every country except North Korea and Cuba. It's consumed 1.9 billion times per day. The cocaine is gone, but the formula remains. So let me leave you with this. If Coca-Cola, a product born from a controlled substance, marketed as medicine, and mass-distributed before anyone understood the consequences, if that product were invented today, would it be illegal? Or would it be celebrated? Maybe the answer doesn't matter. Maybe the empire is already built. If you stayed until the end, you already know why you're here. There are more stories like this. Stories that change how you see the world. Stay curious.